Music in the Cafe, a Lukanette alternate universe month-long fanfiction. I will be using the daily prompts found in the Lukanette September 2019 calendar. This is not mine. I will be putting the Tumblr page I found this on in the description box below. I do not claim any credit to it, only to the story. Thank you for watching, reading, or listening. Day 8. Strings. Hello, Adrian, Marinette said coolly. Hello to you, too, Adrian replied back, giving her that infamous, dazzling model boy smile from his youth. Unlike before, it didn't make her melt, or shudder, or fall in love with him even more. No, it just made her roll her eyes behind his back as he walked in. Very cozy place, he commented. Marinette scowled again. She did not like the idea of him intruding on her life. He chuckled. Remember our apartment? Adrian mused. I rather do miss that place. Marinette raised an eyebrow. I thought you stayed there. The blonde shrugged. Nope, I moved. Marinette nodded. This was awkward, and that did not bode well for her. She crossed her arms in an effort to hide the shaking hands and irregular breathing. No. This was a bad idea. Bad idea. I need to kick him out. He's gonna start ridiculing my house, and then I'm gonna yell back. Then he's gonna tell people not to come to my cafe, and it will be ruined, and I'll end up homeless because no one will take me, and I'll move back with my parents. Marinette's thoughts were possibly scaring her more than the ex-boyfriend in front of her. So, did you get another house or apartment? Marinette asked. She hated the awkward silence of Adrian looking around, and Marinette just standing back at the door, not sure what to do in her own home. I got a house, Adrian said. Marinette shuffled her feet. Do you, want some croissants and macaroons? Marinette asked, cursing herself for stuttering. Adrian laughed and shot her his new signature smile. A smirk. An amused, slightly condescending smirk. And boy, oh boy, did Marinette hate it. She hated it, even when it was first starting to grow some 2 years ago. It made her shudder, and it was far too reminiscent of his father, and not the bubbly boy she fell hopelessly in love with at the young age of 13. Aw, I missed your little stutters, he laughed. Marinette, however, scowled and flickered her gaze somewhere else. Snapping herself out of her thoughts, Marinette went to grab a tray of macaroons, croissants, and muffins she had baked. You don't play guitar now, do you? Adrian asked when she came back. He was mindlessly tossing around a pick between his fingers. Marinette's eyes widened and her face tightened. No, she said stiffly, setting the tray down. Adrian's entire being began to light up and his eyes were shining. Wow, you're making me miss you more and more, he chuckled, reaching for a croissant. Marinette narrowed her eyes but refrained from speaking as she noted the familiar look on his face. Her own features melted into some gentler ones. There he is, Marinette thought with a slight smile on her face. That was Adrian she knew. A young child's joy and curiosity, the fluffy, innocent look, the bright, overwhelming joy of something so small. That was the real Adrian peeking through the rough exterior of a wealthy and sly businessman that was untouchable. Upon noticing her fond smile, Adrian gave her the smirk and an eyebrow raised. Oh, milady, are you feeling— Shut it! Correction. There was the old Adrian peeking through the new one. The Adrian that she knew was long gone and never to return. This one, this egotist, calculating and devious one, was here to stay. His smirk only grew as Marinette frowned and began to tap her fingers quickly along her legs. "Don't call me that," she snapped. Adrian raised an eyebrow in an amused fashion. "Why not?" he asked innocently. Marinette huffed. "You know exactly why, and I don't think either of us need to relive it, but we can," she said in a pointed and taunt tone. Adrian's smirk faltered, a crack in the rough, cruel facade, and Marinette bit her lip to keep a triumphant smirk of her own from rising up. He would surely poke at her cheeks if he saw it, because that's what he always does. Did. He always did that. "Why do you have a guitar pick if you don't play?" he inquired. Marinette almost rolled her eyes. "Yep, change the subject and avoid facing your mistakes," she thought. Marinette held out her hand for him to give it back, and surprisingly, he did, pressing it into the palm of her hand. "My friend gave it to me this morning." Adrian cocked his head to one side. "Who?" he asked. Marinette's face became blank. "You don't need to know." "Can I know?" "No." Adrian pouted, but unlike before, Marinette held her stare and didn't give in. And finally he let go, sighing and leaning back into his chair. "I kinda thought that would work," he joked, and Marinette raised a brow. "Of course you did," she retorted. "I should probably take offense to that," Adrian laughed. Marinette did not crack even a smile. "You didn't?" she asked coldly. He was slowly but surely annoying the heck out of her, and her rising anger was not something that she cared much to keep in check around him. Adrian only looked at her. Clearly the comment had been brushed off and hadn't damaged his ego. Good lord, what could? "Guitars are cool," he said. Suddenly, Marinette looked at him quizzingly. The blonde put his arms up in surrender. "What? I was just saying they were cool." Marinette eyed him suspiciously. "It's actually my second favorite string instrument," he mused, leaning back, finishing his pastry. "What's number one?" Marinette asked, making polite conversation. "Piano." Two things ran through Marinette's mind. The first was that, of course, that was number one on the list. Like, of course, it had to be. Two, piano was not a string instrument. It was percussion. Nay, it was in its own category. "Pianos aren't a part of the string family," she objected. Adrian shrugged. "It has strings, right?" he replied. Marinette sighed. "Yeah, just 'cause it has strings doesn't mean it's a string instrument. That's like, I don't know, saying a shirt is a string instrument because it has strings in it," Marinette argued. Adrian pointed his eyes, and the once bright green seemingly darkened. "That's crazy. That's a crazy example that has nothing to do with what we're talking about. Therefore, I'm right," Adrian said matter-of-factly. Marinette's nostrils flared. "Whatever," she snapped. Adrian smirked. "Just admit I'm right." Marinette glared forcefully at him, but the sneer didn't falter. "No, pianos use hammers to make the sound. By that logic, percussion," Marinette pointed out. The right of Adrian's lips lifted slightly and he leaned forward. "It hits strings, and that makes them vibrate, just like a violin. That's how the sounds are made. You press down the key that hits the hammer, and, a type of mallet, and that makes the strings vibrate." Marinette glared intensely at the eyes in front of her. No more nice, polite talk. Both of them were mad now, and for what? Whether a piano was a string instrument or not? It was rather silly to argue over this. "Look, why don't we just agree to disagree?" Marinette said aspirated. Or at the very least, a piano is both a string and percussion. Adrian shook his head, a scowl predominantly on his face. I'm right, and you know it, he growled. Marinette rubbed her forehead. Adrian, this is a silly thing to argue over. I'm right. Neither of us are right nor wrong. Think about what you want, but you better admit the truth. You are wrong, and I'm right. Say it. Adrian shouted, slamming his hands on the table. Marinette jumped in her seat, startled by the noise. If the Adrian she had met years ago had been there, his expression would have softened, and he would have at least tried to bring the situation calm down. He would have consulted her and been the light of goodness. Unfortunately, no, this was not him. The new Adrian didn't let go of his menacing glare. Marinette breathed and placed her hands laced together on the table slowly, her eyes glaring daggers. Fine, you're right, she said coldly. Agreste smirked in triumph, in a close-lipped fashion. Happy to win a battle, despite what it cost. It's not like she expected anything different, though. This was how every argument ended in the last year of their relationship. At first, he was more argumentative, angry at smaller things. And then he got aggressive, giving no care when he shouted something. Soon after that, he was competitive, always needing to be right. His heartless insults came next, leaving Marinette in tears by the end. When it started, he'd come and say sorry, but that didn't last, and soon Marinette was staying at her parents' or Alia and Nino's place more often than a girl in a long-term relationship should have. The final straw. Well, let's just say it ended with Marinette packing up her toothbrush and leaving. What are you doing here? Marinette crossed her arms and spat out. I want to make amends, he said nonchalantly. But the ponytail-wearing girl scoffed. Yeah, great way going about it. She gave a humorless laugh. Adrian looked down. If she didn't know any better, she'd think he was feeling remorseful. However, though he thought she was, Marinette was not stupid. He only regretted the fact that Marinette had caught on so quickly. I'll ask again. What are you doing here? Adrian muttered his answer. Say again? Marinette snapped. I wanted to work things out so we could get back together. It was such a low and quiet voice, it was barely audible. Marinette's jaw almost dropped. Her fingers were curling around far too tight for comfort, and her mouth was pressed into a thin line. Eyes were wide and sharpened at the same time. Marinette gave a sharp, humorless laugh, making Agreste lean back slightly. Even his wild and flaming ego bent to the wrath of Marinette Dupanchang. So that's it. You decide now that you want us to be together, and you call me up, and you really expect me to pull a forgive and forget? No, no, no. You have always been smart, but right now I'm starting to question that notion. There is no way we are ever getting back together, especially not with that little stunt you pulled there, she said angrily. Agreste opened his mouth to speak, but Marinette put her hand up and cut him off. No, you have no rights here. This is my house. I don't know what is going on in that head of yours, but I'm putting it to rest. Never again, she said firmly. Princess, you can't just throw it all away. We were together for 6 years. We had a future, a home, a hamster. Every couple goes through rough patches, Agreste pleaded. Shut up and never call me that again, Marinette commanded, and indeed, Agreste listened. If you think you can come and tell me not to throw it all away, you should look at yourself first then. We did have a home, a life, a planned wedding, a future. But I was not the one who threw that out the window, Marinette said coldly. Agreste said nothing. He only looked at her. Pain and maybe tears in his eyes? Now the roles were reversed. Marinette didn't care. She'd cared enough about him in the past, and look where that led her. I've changed, Marinette. I won't. Yeah, think if you want, but you're the same. Wait, no, maybe you're right. You've changed, but it's not in the right direction. Please, just give me a chance to correct my mistakes. Give us a chance. No! I only take a leap of faith for something that's worth my time and energy. Get out of my house! Agreste was taken aback, frozen in place, eyes wide and mouth agape. Out! Marinette demanded again. He slowly got up, blinking blankly at her. Milady, he tried to start, but Marinette cut him off. Get out of my house, Agreste! She thundered. That made him move. His eyes went down and he shuffled to the doorway with Marinette tailing behind, glaring at him intensely. He walked out and his chauffeur opened the door to his limo. He turned back to look at the now enraged woman he had so hopelessly been in love with for so long, and gave her one final defeated look. Ducking into the limo, he had driven off, and Marinette scowled until it was out of sight. Marinette! We heard what happened! Tiki sputtered worriedly. Marinette huffed. Girl, we've got you. Alia placed a reassuring hand on her friend's shoulder. Marinette squeezed the bridge of her nose and turned back into the house. I'll be back. I need some fabric and thread. I need to make something.